And we cut straight across to Tianjin in China, where the SCO summit is underway. And we bring you a breaking news from that. Well, the reception is underway. The President of China and his wife are hosting a reception there. And Prime Minister Modi has arrived for that reception in Tianjin. You are seeing the visuals of that photo opportunity that happened there. During the reception, all the world leaders who are attending this summit are there for the reception that is hosted by President Xi Jinping and his wife. There in the middle of them, you see Prime Minister Modi also posing for that photograph, that historic photograph that's clicked during these events. Now this SCO summit, these leaders will be part of the summit. There are many bilateral talks also organized as this summit is underway. Chinese President Xi Jinping met up with India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi for such bilateral today, and after that both the countries gave their statements, where we saw that Prime Minister Modi said that we are committed to take this relationship between India and China forward and to extend our ties. President Xi Jinping also said that it is extremely vital for India and China to be friends, two big nations of Asia to be together, to develop together, to work and move ahead together. The dragon and elephant have to unite, have to come together, is what the Chinese President Xi Jinping said today. And the picture that you see on your screens right now is coming straight from Tianjin in China, where the SCO summit is underway. And all the leaders, the members of the SCO summit, the observers, all the leaders are there, as you can see, for the reception that is being hosted by the President of China and his wife. Standing there in the center of the picture, the President and his wife, the hosts, and flanked by the leaders who are there enjoying the hospitality and also for the ever crucial meet that is important for the regional stability and also for global stability. Joining us now is Gaurav Sawant, live from Tianjin in China. Gaurav, right now on our screens we are showing the picture from the reception where the Chinese president and his wife are standing in the center and are flanked by all the leaders who are attending this SCO summit and the reception hosted by them. And there we see the Prime Minister also standing there. Explain to us the importance of this picture.
So these are 20 plus leaders, 10 members of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. And apart from the members, you have those who've specially been invited for this, including, Prime Ministers of Nepal and the President of Maldives. You also have countries like Turkey that have been invited. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has been invited, and there are several others. So it's an attempt to show the power of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Russian President Vladimir Putin, Chinese President Xi Jinping, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, very, very powerful world leaders on one stage. Erdogan of Turkey, and then in the second row you notice, there are the leaders who've been invited. Of course, there's also UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres in these pictures, along with other leaders. What is the indication? The indication, as the Chinese side are keen to explain, that one, they want the global south or the developing countries, and especially this grouping, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, to have a bigger role, a bigger say in management of world affairs. That's something they're very keen on. Two, it's to see how this grouping can work together in various aspects and fields, and especially in the economy, in connectivity, in trade. All of that, when they work together, it helps all of them. However, differences are also stark, especially on the issue of the reason for the founding of this organization. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or SCO, was established to combat terrorism and extremism in all its forms and manifestations. But China introduced a member that is a globally recognized state sponsor of radical Islamist terror, that is Pakistan. A country which has been spreading terror not just in India but also in Afghanistan, and there are apprehensions even in China that you could have these radical Islamist elements who could create trouble in East Turkestan. And you have a movement called East Turkestan Islamic Movement that China is very apprehensive about in the Xinjiang region. So there are these various issues that seem to bog this organization down, and that is why many in the West say that it's an important grouping. It's a grouping that China wants to dominate, but Russia remains a very dominant power here. President Putin remains very strong, despite many saying that after the Russia-Ukraine war he would be weakened. But if you see the way the American president dealt with him, or gave him the red carpet treatment in Alaska, clearly President Putin's strength is there for all to see. India's emerging as the world's fastest growing large economy. So India's strength is something that the entire world sees. So much so that looking at India's rise, you have countries like the United States of America that we consider a comprehensive strategic partner, and they have called the Ukraine war as Modi's war. I mean, not Putin's war, not Russia's war, but they call it Modi's war. And why? Because they want India to play a significantly different role from what India is playing. It just goes on to indicate how strong India is as a world entity, no longer playing second fiddle to any nation or any grouping, standing tall. And we've seen that, standing tall vis-a-vis China versus China in Galwan, and ever since, against a state sponsor of radical Islamist terror, Pakistan, during Operation Sindoor. And incidentally, Shahbaz Sharif is also seen in these images, I think 2 places away from Prime Minister Narendra Modi in this grouping. So it just goes on to show how different countries deal with India, and India stands tall, independent, making sure that our voice is heard across the world.
Absolutely. And if we talk about this picture a little bit more, I'm able to zoom in and look a little better at the faces. Well, of course, these positions are not really talking too much about the dynamics, but it is interesting to see. See, Prime Minister Modi, along with him stands Lukashenko, and right after that is Turkey's President Erdogan. Now, we've seen how Turkey came in support of Pakistan during the Operation Sindoor and the skirmishes that we saw. Also, we see Putin standing right next to Xi Jinping. And what is interesting is that Prime Minister Modi had also posted on his social media account, X, that he had a phone call with Ukrainian President before this meeting. Now, in this entire global scenario, look at what has prompted America to put those penalties. What Trump says, that is what they're projecting publicly, that it is the Ukrainian war and the Russia war. And here we see a picture where we see Russia there, Prime Minister spoken to Ukraine there, and America, right now, the one that claims to be the harbinger of peace, not there, of course, because not part of this grouping. But very important here are the visuals that we see of Prime Minister standing not very far from Turkey, and also Putin there. So do tell us how the global dynamics or the geopolitics of this entire region is depicted via this picture.
That's a very interesting point that you made, that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky called up Prime Minister Narendra Modi because he knew that Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be meeting the Russian President, Russian President Vladimir Putin here, and he hopes that there will be an attempt that peace, the road to peace, can come out of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's conversations with President Putin. Clearly, it's something that did not happen when the American President Donald Trump spoke to the Russian President in Alaska. So, if you remember, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi had traveled to Moscow and then he traveled to Kiev, both times he said, if there is an effort that's required, if you want anything that India can do, India is very happy to make that effort for peace in this region. But both sides should want it. Let's see what comes out of that meeting between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Russian President Vladimir Putin tomorrow.
Absolutely. It will be interesting to keep an eye on it, especially since the whole trade war that US is trying to project and saying it's the Modi's war, and trying to say that the penalty that they've imposed on India is actually India's doing. That's what they're trying to project. But here we know that Russia itself got a grand welcome when he went to US. China stands there tall in the middle of it all, getting a much better trade deal than what India got. So then how is it that the penalty is being imposed only on India and not the other countries? So this is quite an interesting point that we will be keeping an eye on, but also Ukraine in this milieu. But we are receiving now the pictures as well. The Nepalese Prime Minister has also come in with his wife. We are receiving the visuals of the reception and the wife of President Xi Jinping standing there next to him, taking part in welcoming all the leaders, many of them who have come there with their spouses, as Gaurav told us. Gaurav, could you tell us who are the people who are invited to this reception? This is a much more informal occasion. This will be an occasion for, the leaders to mingle. And sometimes, you never know. We see Muzo also over there. Maldives is something that India has been focusing on recently, and we have bridged that gap that was coming between the two and the relationship. So do tell us what happens during these informal dinners and receptions, because we as common men do not have an insight to it.
So you're absolutely right. President Muizu of Maldives is also a special invitee. So there are 20 heads of state and government, some with their spouses who are here. And the effort is for them to mingle with each other, interact with each other. Russia, of course, integral to the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, but there are many analysts who say that China is trying to make deeper inroads in the Indian Ocean region. The invitation to President Muizu of Maldives, the invitation that's gone out to Nepal, some may have frowned upon it, saying, Nepal is closer to India. At the same time, Nepal has always, there have been instances that Nepal has played the China card against India. So that's something that India has dealt with from the very beginning. Again, this is something that there's intense joking that's happening globally, and you witness it here. But that's one aspect. The second that you were saying, what happens here? After these formal pictures are taken, it's an informal environment for all the heads of state and governments to interact with each other. And that's an opportunity that they get to know each other better. Often that works to the advantage of these countries and these groupings. Then, of course, they sit down for a formal state dinner. Then tomorrow is the official reception and the Tianjin declaration that we shall see once this meeting is over. But after that, there's another meeting that Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be having with the Russian President Vladimir Putin, and that too is extremely significant. That meeting is very, very important, again, from the points of view of India-Russia bilateral, and whether there's a signal that goes out. The road to peace in Russia and Ukraine, does that go through New Delhi, or does New Delhi have a role to play in it? Not because it's Modi's war on Ukraine, but whether the Prime Minister can play a role in getting Russia and Ukraine to talk to each other, and not through the United States or any other country in Europe that may have their own axe to grind here.
Right, and you know what? Trump, everything aside, sometimes give you these nuggets of information that usually don't come your way. And when he says that Putin and Zelensky cannot stand each other and hate each other, that does bring us to that issue that when two leaders of two nations who are at war, when there is no personal chemistry between them, when there is intense dislike between them, it becomes even more significant that a country that has been able to maintain cordial relationship with one and a friendly contact with another brings them together. So, talking about this importance of India's role in possibly trying to bring some peace in that region, do tell us more about it, because we have seen that there has been little bit of, Ukraine's not been very open about how it wants to go ahead with the peace proposal. Putin also has been very adamant on the land issue, how much are they going to give in, how much they want, and EU recently after Russia's attacks on Kyiv has also become extremely hostile. We are getting these visuals now. Gaurav, I would like to inform you, right now we're getting the visuals of the minute when Prime Minister Modi walked into this reception. He shook hands with the President and his wife as well, posed for the photograph, and once again, after shaking hands, he went ahead to the reception. So those were the visuals of the Prime Minister walking in for that reception that we were talking about. This is an informal occasion for the heads of states to meet and mingle, and you never know what comes out of these informal occasions. But Gaurav continues to be with us. Gaurav, picking up that thought that I was delving into, how important would the SCO be? And also, we've invited Xi Jinping to BRICS. Now, BRICS is something Trump keeps targeting again and again. So these regional summits that we have, how important are these? And now, with there being a possibility of Trump not coming to Quad, how important these regional summits become?
So as far as India is concerned, India takes BRICS very seriously, India takes SCO very seriously, and India takes, even the Quad very seriously, though not, none of these are military groupings. BRICS is an economic grouping. These were the world's most powerful economies that were coming together. Different parts of the world, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and then later South Africa joined, and then other countries want to join, and now there's a long list of countries who want to join the BRICS as a grouping, and that just shows how important and powerful BRICS as a grouping is. America, because there was some conversation about de-dollarization, and India has repeatedly insisted that India is not on board on de-dollarization. So that project is not moving forward, because every decision has to be by consensus, and every founding member has equal say in every decision. So similarly, when Pakistan wanted to be a part of BRICS, it was very effectively vetoed, because you don't want a state sponsor of radical Islamist terror to be a part of the world's fastest growing economies coming together and talking about the betterment of their region, their countries, and the world in general. So this BRICS grouping becomes all the more important right now when you're talking about standing up to Trump's tariff tyranny. And this is where you see BRICS will play a significant role. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has invited the Chinese president to visit India for next year. India will be hosting the BRICS summit, but then this year India is also hosting the Quad summit. And will President Donald Trump finally come, or will he back out, or will he back off from here? It remains to be seen, because both Japan and India have adopted a very principled stance on Donald Trump and on his tariffs. Donald Trump, of course, has a different readout of what happened. Japan has a different readout of what transpired between the two. But the fact remains, if two of the four partners are not seeing eye to eye with the United States of America, India would still want this relationship to move forward, because India anyway considers Trump's actions as wrong, unnecessary, arbitrary, and completely uncalled for. And India has done nothing that should have that kind of a response. So is it more to do with Donald Trump on Russia war, or Donald Trump not being recommended for a Nobel Peace Prize, or India saying he had a big role to play in the ceasefire when he didn't have a role to play, or should India have worded it differently, saying that, yeah, he had a role to play in getting Pakistan to back off? There are many issues, that can be argued. But the fact remains, India does not believe in kowtowing, either to America or to China or to anybody else. India is standing tall. There will be, as the Prime Minister said, there will be repercussions, there will be ramifications. He said he'll have personal costs to pay for it, but he's willing to pay that cost for not, kowtowing to America, or not doing a sajda to the United States of America, which clearly India is not. And on the other question that you raised, between Russia and Ukraine, frankly, when Prime Minister Narendra Modi had that 5-hour-long discussion with Vladimir Putin, he'd made it very clear, and at SCO earlier also, that this is not an era of war. President Putin also understands that. He says President Putin apparently is of the opinion that Ukrainian president within the first week of the special operations in February 2022 had come to the conclusion that this war conflict was unnecessary in Turkey, and it was a Turkey-mediated effort. He had agreed to sign a ceasefire, but Britain had stepped in and said, don't sign a ceasefire, and Boris Johnson had then gone to Kiev, and this war kept lingering on. So it was basically President Putin's impression is that it's Europe and America that were fueling this war, using Ukraine as an excuse. Is that what is happening even now is the big question. And can India then prevail to ensure that Russia and Ukraine talk to each other and decide a way forward? It does appear extremely different. Why? Because one fact is clear: Russia will not cede any territory that it's gained with the loss of a lot of lives in this war. So that is why, unless Ukraine decides to cede territory, this war will either end up being endless, or there will have to be a change of government, at least in Ukraine.
Right, and this war has impacted many. It has impacted many economies as well. Loss of life is, of course, the biggest issue, but after that is also economies. It pushed up inflation in many countries. It pushed up living costs in many countries. And every time winter comes, it becomes a huge issue. But Europe, it seems to be now finding other sources of energy as well. But energy is also something that is a big issue in this war. But Gaurav, we were talking about the influence of America and how it tried to bully India into probably, you know, as we say, maybe out of politeness, nobody's saying or addressing the elephant in the room, but how Trump has almost 40 times mentioned that he tried to stop the war between India and Pakistan. Probably it is all about that. It's about the ego of one man and using his country's might to bully another country into submission and wanting them to toe the line. But here we heard in this statement from the Chinese president that they want to stress on strategic autonomy. They want to boost trade while avoiding third-party influence. Now, third-party influence can be read by many as US influence, especially since it is the country right now globally that is trying to impose tariffs on every possible country. So even though US may not be mentioned, but could it be US that both the countries are referring to when they say that they want to increase trade without while avoiding third-party influence?
So India's aspirations, Anjali, are to become the third largest economy, and for that India needs both the United States of America and China. And India's entire effort has been to have good relations with both America and China, in fact with every country in the world, because that's the only way India will grow to be one of the largest economies in the world. The aspiration is to be larger than just the third largest economy. The third largest economy we are likely to be between 2027 and 2030, all going well. So you wouldn't want either conflict to derail you or tensions like this to derail you. And that is why India's effort was to have a quick trade deal with the United States of America. When President Trump was sworn in on the 20th of January 2025, Prime Minister Narendra Modi was amongst the first world leaders to go to Washington, D.C. in February 2025, and there was some conversation by fall they will have the trade deal, and by 2030, bilateral trade would be $500 billion. That was the effort. A lot of effort was being made to bring more investment in India. And India, if you recall, even before Trump's swearing in, had taken multiple measures, to ensure that the tariffs, which were around 17% is what experts tell us, are brought down even further. India is not the Maharaja of tariffs. I mean, that is the kind of propaganda Donald Trump does. And when he says that so-and-so country promised $500 billion investment in the United States and bringing in thousands and thousands and lakhs of jobs, none of that is actually happening on ground. These are figures that Donald Trump just cooks up, as some analysts argue. He cooks up figures which are huge in order to market himself and make that trade deal. But India as a democracy and as a responsible democracy cannot make these statements that we will invest hundreds of dollars in America, point one, point two, and cannot even say that America had a role to play in a ceasefire when it did not, is what government of India has emphatically said, and the Prime Minister said that on the floor of the House. So India still is hopeful that there could be some kind of an agreement with the United States of America when America sees sense. Till the time America sees sense, India will persevere. India, will persevere and will continue to push for a trade deal, but not at the cost of compromising our national interests. Point one. Point two, with China also we want better ties, but not at the cost of, there being tensions on the borders. So there has to be peace and tranquility at the borders, forward movement of the borders and forward movement in trade, because all of that will help India grow. We need fertilizers from China. We need that tunnel boring equipment. We need the magnets. We need the rare earth material in India. We need all of that for our EV sector to grow. So all of that is required. So whatever, trade deals have to be done with European Union, with the United Kingdom, it's already happened, with the West Asian countries. India is going to do all of that and is trying to do all of that to ensure Indian interests are best served, whether it's, linking up with China here, America there, Middle East there, European Union there, with Japan it's huge, with Australia the effort is to increase it even further. So that's India's effort to just make sure Indian national interests are best served.
About national interest, we did see President Xi Jinping expressing commitment to a fair, reasonable resolution of the boundary issue. Now, how should we read that, Gaurav? And no better to explain this to us than you. What does it mean for us and our eastern borders?
So China has repeatedly tried to unilaterally alter the line of actual control. And in Doklam 2017 and Galwan 2020, India resisted Chinese creeping forward and occupying Indian territory, which led to friction. We lost 20 lives, including Colonel Santosh Babu, who was awarded a Mahavir Chakra posthumously. Chinese lost many lives. They've officially admitted to losing their commanding officer and 4 soldiers. Unofficially, Russian agency TASS said more than 44 Chinese soldiers were killed. But China hasn't come out with full figures and numbers. In fact, we still do not know how many Chinese soldiers were killed in the 1962 India-China war, right, because these are things that China also tries to keep a secret. However, the fact remains that China has also realized that India militarily is a growing power. India was able to resist the Chinese advance, and you have 50,000 troops amassed on borders. Now, fair and equitable solution means no unilateral changing of LAC. At least you start demarking positions on the map, at least start exchanging maps, at least declare, your claim line of where you are, and then move forward to decide where each party is. In the past, there were opportunities. Initially, India did not grab an opportunity. Later, China did not grab an opportunity, and this situation has festered. But you don't want festering wounds on your borders on all sides. You'd rather move forward with an amicable solution, if possible, not at the cost of compromising your national interests. So right now, between Foreign Minister of China, Wang Yi, their special representative on boundary, and Ajit Dovala, India's national security advisor, they will draw up a mechanism on which they will move forward. Both the leaders are satisfied with the way peace is prevailing, at least as of now. They're moving forward on the economic leg that benefits China, that benefits India, because China will not do anything which will unilaterally benefit India. India too now is rising as a power, though a $4 trillion economy compared to 18 trillion of China and 30 trillion of the United States. So it will take us time to get where we want to get. But India also doesn't want to do anything that will unilaterally benefit China. There's been a lot of unilateral concessions in the past. The effort is now that you ensure that some of your interests are better protected, but then you also have to keep importing from China to keep India's, costs in India low. That's also one of the efforts to keep our economy flourishing or growing. You have to keep costs in India low. So that's a fine balance that India attempts to draw. Sometimes you win and sometimes you don't. But that's the effort, government sources explain to us. Right now, with that thought, they're moving forward, that our economy must continue to get spurred. It must continue to get oil in terms of actual oil from Russia, and investment from other countries to ensure that we continue to grow to be the third largest economy and then amongst the top three economies of the world, top economies of the world.
Right, absolutely. And once again, Gaurav, I'll just say stay with us because once again, we'll try to show these visuals. You know, we are showing how different heads of states came and met with the president of China and his wife. We see there visuals of Putin coming in. We also see Prime Minister Modi walking in, greeting the president of China and his wife, standing there for the photograph, for the photo opportunity, and then moving forward into the informal banquet that's been organized for them. Joining us now is Pranay Upadhyay from India Today Global. Pranay, you know, the visuals have come in. The family photo, as it's called, is also there. Putin there standing right next to Xi Jinping, smiling. The man in the midst of it all, you know. It's being called the Modi's war by US. It is Putin's war. I mean, everybody knows that, but it's being called Modi's war. We see him right now smiling there, standing with China, who is the biggest buyer of energy from Putin. But somehow, Trump has made it all about India and penalized us the most. Now, do explain to us these visuals, this SCO meet, and how it's going to impact the global politics as we know it now.
This photograph is the reflection of the real politic, Anjali. You can see that how world is perceiving it. Russia stands as the most sanctioned country on this planet. Around 30,000 sanctions are there on Russia. Different type of sanctions are there. You know, many measures have been taken by the West, but still countries are dealing with Russia. Countries are inviting the Russian President Vladimir Putin, and this is the example how China, the second largest economy on the planet, is dealing with the Russian president and Russian economy, as well as you know, many of the countries whose head of states are there, whose head of government are there, and these are those countries like Qatar or many other countries with whom United States has very good relation. So look, everyone is talking to everyone, and that is the reality check in the multipolar world. And this is the multipolarity of the world where everyone is moving towards. President Donald Trump might want to put the global economy or to the global order in a reverse gear and want to make it a unipolar world. But this remains the reality that everyone, you know, as Lord Palmerston, the former British Prime Minister, once said that there are no permanent friends, there are no permanent foes, there are only permanent interests, and every country pursue their foreign policy as per their own national interests. And here you could see the Chinese attempt. Look, this picture is also in coming week. If you see next 4-5 days, this is going to be a big week for China. On one side, a big diplomatic event is being organized in China. On the other hand, on 3rd of September, China will be displaying its military might on the 80th anniversary of its fight against the Japanese imperialism. And for that ceremony as well, the Russian President Vladimir Putin will also be witnessing that parade. And besides him, the Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and many other leaders will be staying back in Beijing, and they will be witnessing that military parade. So on one side, the diplomatic power, the diplomatic strength of China is being displayed in Tianjin and in Beijing. China would be displaying, you know, its military might. So where does India stand? Look, India. If you see Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Asian tour of 2 nations and his Asian outreach, he went to Japan. He went to Japan. That was a bilateral meeting. Japan is an important partner of India, bilaterally as well as in multilateral forums like multilateral forum like Quad as well, which is an important grouping. India is the current chair of Quad, and though President Donald Trump and his team has so far not confirmed that whether they will be participating in a Quad summit or not, but this remains a reality that many of the Quad partners, many of the Western countries, so India comes with a very unique proposition here, Anjali, that we are with we hosted G20 in 2023. We are usually invited for the G7 summits as well. We have good relation with the Western Bloc as well. And on the other side, in the Asian sphere, We have our own clout, we have our own importance. And if you see, why did Prime Minister go to SCO? SCO is one of the most important regional grouping. The way SCO has grown up in last 20-25 years, we have seen that we have to be here because this SCO summit represent around 60% of the landmass of Eurasia. It represents around 40% of the global population and around 20 or over 20% of the global GDP. So there, being a growing economy, being the fastest growing economy on earth, and a very important economic player, we have to be there in this grouping so that we can put forth, we can put across our ideas and be partner in this global change.
Right, absolutely, Pranay. And this is also a message to America, you know, we are not bowing down. There are other options as well. And the more they delay the negotiations on the trade talks and everything, India is doing its best to form other, explore other markets as well and outreaches to other countries as well. Pranay, do stay back with us. But we're going to quickly show some aspects of this bilateral meet that happened in China today, in a meeting that was watched closely across the globe. Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping held talks in Tianjin, signaling a possible restart in India-China ties as both sides call for trust, peace and partnership. More on this in our next report.
The dragon and the elephant must come together. That was the message from Chinese President Xi Jinping to Prime Minister Narendra Modi in a high-stakes bilateral on the sidelines of the SCO summit in Tianjin. Xi recalled last year's Kazan meeting as the turning point, the reset moment for China-India ties. Now, with diplomacy gaining ground, he urged both nations, two ancient civilizations, two population giants, two pillars of the global south, to rise above rivalry and embrace partnership. Xi called for strategic vision, not short-term suspicion, mutual trust, not threats. And yes, a dancing of the dragon and the elephant as the right path forward.
It is a great pleasure to meet you again, Mr. Prime Minister. I welcome you to China for the SCO summit. Last year, we had a successful meeting in Kazan. The world is going towards transformation. China and India are two of the most civilizational countries. We are the world's two most populous countries and part of the global south. It is vital to be friends, a good neighbor, and the dragon and the elephant to come together.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi reaffirmed that India-China ties are back on a positive track. He pointed to concrete signs, a peaceful border, resumption of direct flights and Kailash-Mansarovar Yatra, and a renewed commitment to cooperation. Prime Minister Modi stressed that India and China are not adversaries but partners in progress.
सीमा पर डिसएग्रीमेंट के बाद शांति और स्थिरता का माहौल बना हुआ है। हमारे स्पेशल रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स के बीच बॉर्डर मैनेजमेंट के संबंध में सहमति बनी। कैलाश मानसरोवर यात्रा फिर से शुरू की।
Even Chinese media is calling this meeting a potential breakthrough, a turning point in India-China ties.
हम बहुत खुशी से ये देख रहे हैं जिन भारत हम दोनों दो पड़ोसी देश है ना हम तो इस दुनिया के सबसे बड़े विकासशील देश भी है और इस दुनिया के तो उभरती अर्थव्यवस्थाएं भी है तो अगर हम दोनों एक साथ हाथ मिलकर काम करते हैं तो जरूर बहुत सबसे मजबूती शक्ति होगी.
As the world watches a shifting global order, both leaders agreed this relationship must be driven by long-term purpose, not border headlines. Could Tianjin be the breakthrough? With Gaurav Sawant and Shweta Singh in Tianjin, Bureau Report, India Today.
So let's try and understand why this bilateral meeting is taking away all the headlines from SCO. Well, there are many takeaways from this meeting which are important for India and China. Takeaway number one. Well, It's been said by both the countries that the ties are going to be based on mutual respect and trust. Trust is extremely important because earlier India, which had extended a hand of friendship, had faced some trust issues as far as China is concerned. And this is important for India now. The takeaway number 2, they are trying to re-establish the direct flights between India and China soon. This is going to give us not just movement of people, but also movement of culture, will build trust, and it is important for people to people connect between the two countries. Takeaway number 3, focus on cultural ties like Kailash-Yatra, which is extremely important for the Indians, and China realizing that and trying to offer an olive branch has resumed that. This is extremely important. Now, takeaway 4, the border management agreement between India and China. Well, you have to understand, India and China have had a border management system for many years, and agreements after agreements have come. Now, this has started from 1993 and continues till date. And the latest happened when India and China spoke about the Eastern Ladakh conflict and came to a sort of a common ground where they decided they're going to reduce their troops and talk through special representatives. Now, another key takeaway is that 2.8 billion people-to-people ties are important. What is the population of this world? 8.3 billion. And almost 3 million out of that are in these two countries. Imagine the strength if people-to-people ties can be fostered between these two countries. Takeaway number 6, recognition of power of Global South. Well, as Gaurav and Pranay were saying earlier, that US may want a unipolar world, but the truth is that the Global South is rising, and that power has to be acknowledged by the Western countries, especially America. Takeaway number 7, building on civilizational ties. We all know India and China have centuries of ties. India gave Buddhism to China. We've had scholars, we've had monks traveling between the two countries, and these civilizational ties are something that we need to preserve and build on. Takeaway number 8, focus on long-term relationship. India-China relationship has been tumultuous, least to say, and it has to be fostered, it has to be nurtured so that it lasts in long term. Takeaway number 9, a clear mention of changing global order. This is important because India has constantly and consistently been saying that the global order is changing and it has to be acknowledged by the people who propagated the earlier global order. And this is what China is also now ready to acknowledge and help India with in making the Western countries acknowledge. And takeaway number 10, cooperation for peace, prosperity in Asia. Well, if the two big giants of Asia come together and focus on development and peace, then that's what Asia is going to get, because these are the two most important countries. And as we see in SCO, also another big power, Russia is there. So that's important. Now, Pranay, we just mentioned what are the 10 key takeaways from this bilateral meet. Would you like to add more to it?
Very nicely and beautifully represented the entire crux of this meeting. What are the big takeaways? What did India get out of it? But what are the red lines, or what are the prerequisite which was underlined by Prime Minister Narendra Modi? Look, there are 3 important things. To take forward this relation, India expects 3 basic things: mutual respect, mutual interest, and the mutual sensitivities. So there has to be there has to be concern, there has to be respect for all these things. Mutual respect should be there. We have seen, it shouldn't be a hegemony. It shouldn't be a China-driven process. We have seen, some of the processes where the China decided, wanted to be on the driving seat and wanted to drive the process. Look, it's like two big economies, 2 big populous countries are talking to each other. They want to minimize their differences. Also, we cannot wish away the problem. Look, we are bound by geography. We are the neighboring countries. And historically, Anjali, if you see, it never happened in the history that two big civilization, two old civilization, and two rising superpowers, grew side by side. This is happening for the first time. And we have to be mindful about it. The 3,488 kilometers of unresolved border remains a problem. President Xi Jinping might have underlined the fact that let us not, get our relationship be constrained by the border issue only, but border remains a concern. And this also remains a fact, Anjali, that around 43 square kilometer area of India remains under Chinese occupation. We cannot, forget about that. Okay, we have agreed to deal with this issue. We have agreed to all the border mechanism. We wanted to engage with China to resolve the border, which was also acknowledged by the Chinese side that there should be a fair mutually
Right.
acceptable and reasonable solution to border. But we have to be mindful about these facts.
Absolutely.
And besides that, the Chinese interest and Chinese involvement in the POK, CPEC, these remain the concern area for
Absolutely.
India. That's why the phrase I would use as far as this meeting is concerned, that there is a cautious optimism.
Cautious optimism. Okay, that's a nice phrase to use, Pranay. Thank you very much for telling us what exactly this bilateral means for India and for China as well. But you know what? One thing interesting about China is its tech. And my colleague Gaurav Sawant, who's in Tianjin, spoke with this humanoid robot, Xiao He. And this robot is prepared to assist journalists from around the world who are at the SCO summit. Listen into this conversation.
At the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, right here at the Media Center, the effort is to show Chinese technology. And come closer, let me show you what these robots are all about. These are packets, and this robot makes that distinction which packet has to go there. With me is Mia or Molame. Mia, hi. What can you tell us? What does this robot do?
This robot is from Tianjin Business Company's humanoid robot. Its name is Tora One, and its major function is, as you see, it can just pick the package and categorize them. Just put them into different source categories based on their colors. And as you can see over the baskets over there, it have black packages with the black ones and the white with the white ones. Yeah.
So this is just one of the many technologies on display. So watch this. It has the camera there. It notices the package. It has fingers that makes the distinction and drops it in different categories depending on the color of the package. They can also make that distinction according to weight. So automation is the key that they're trying to show. What is also very interesting, and come closer, let me try and show you this. This is a drone recharger, and it's all about size, scale, and scale. How many drones? This is a drone charger, am I right?
Yes. It's not only just a drone charger. It can just, just let the drone up and just put it down and some of that. So it's, yeah.
So it's automation. In the civil, it has a role. In military, it can have a role. What role does it have? So this is a machine that not only charges the drone, it can replace a faulty part, and it can launch a drone. And apparently more than 50 drones, one after the other, it has the capability of recharging, repairing and launching. The number of drones it can repair and launch.
The number of drones is... this one I need to ask my technician right now. Yeah.
Perfect. So when I was speaking to one of the technicians, they were telling me about the size, scale and speed with which these robotic arms they work. And just imagine, so this drone has a camera here. It's a quadcopter. It can be used for surveillance. It can also, in a different context, have other uses. So this is where their technology comes. Another piece of equipment that is on display here is something that would ultimately replace a human. This is a charger, a battery charger in an electronic vehicle. What does it do? So you bring your car, you don't even have to spend time in putting the charger. This arm does it on its own, a robotic arm. So this is how China is displaying some of these robots, and these youngsters are explaining this. Now, what is their effort? The effort is to show the size, the scale at which all these technologies are coming into China, also artificial intelligence. Gaurav Sawant in Tianjin, China, for India Today. This is the next generation of technology. This is an immersive technology experience. So watch this screen and watch this equipment around me. This gives you a sense of what's happening around. So the next time you watch a movie, it may just be like this in a giant movie theater, where the theater is also on the floor. This will show you the entire experience of the movie that you're watching. And it's not just sight, it's also the smell. So every sensory power is being used here. So for example, if there's a fragrant tree or there are flowers, there'll be a fragrance of trees and flowers just behind, you see the trees there and you smell that fragrance here. That's the experience. And let me show it to you how this immersive technology works. So you have, like in a movie theater, chairs like this. So I'm sitting here and watching this movie. Now, when I watch these images, it's all over. I get a sense of height here. I can see the birds, they're flying around me, and then they soar. And it's all around me, this immersive experience. Watch this. It's as if these images transport you there. From artificial intelligence to the sensory power, all of that is being utilized here, and this is what China is showcasing. With me is a volunteer here at this stall, and Changling, you explain to me what this experience is.
You mean this video? Actually, we have two video, and this one is means the wings of peace, shared destiny, and we can see this have many different SCO members country, and there are very famous landscapes in here, and this here you can see the 3D effects. Yes, it's very directly to feel the you can seeing and you can smelling, touching, all this in one. Yes.
So it's the use of all your senses and sensory power. It's not just see it, you can also smell it and touch it. It almost feels as if you're soaring like the people there. That's Kremlin, Moscow in winters. Does that make you feel cold? Well, that's the impression. Of course, the air conditioning here hasn't come on to make you feel cold or to feel that there is a whale right behind you. But I am told their effort is that next time you see a horse, you can smell the horse. When you see a whale and there's a splash of water, there'll be a splash of water on your face. So that is how immersive they intend to make this technology. Gaurav Sawant in Tianjin, China, for India Today.
So amid the diplomacy, you see the tech might of China displayed there. And with that, it is a wrap on this bulletin. Thank you for watching India Today. For more news and updates, you can log on to indiatoday.in. You can also download the app.